If someone were to ask you, hey, what is the hardest game you've ever played? What would you say? For me, it would have to be the Last of Us 2 experience with the grounded difficulty selected. Now, when I first started to play the game, I thought it was really cool, but I didn't have an incentive to keep playing the game. Fast forward to a couple months, I wanted to just try to replay something because I was bored, came across The Last of Us 2, wanted to, challenge myself and put that game on grounded, and it was one of the best, worst experiences of my life. It was very mentally draining, and I had a hard time sometimes to want to continue the playthrough, but I prevailed, and after doing so, I ended up having an overwhelmingly good time. The amount of adrenaline you feel while playing that difficulty is amped up by 1,000 because everything matters so much more. Now, if that's way too hard for you, there's also a permadeath setting with a bunch of other settings where you don't have to restart from the whole game. There's per chapter or per act. So there's ways to kind of challenge yourself. And that is exactly what you should do. But sometimes a game doesn't have to be that hard for it to be challenging. I'm your average gamer, and today we are going to be talking about one of the hardest, most fun games I've ever played in my entire life, and that game is Devil May Cry. Now, I've never played this series before, I've always heard of it, but I was more into multiplayer games as a kid, the likes of Call of Duty. I mean, that's pretty much it. I played a lot of 2K as well, but other than that, I never really ventured into single-player games. That was until the 2018 God of War came out. Now, I do talk about this a lot, so I don't want to really get too into it, but that was one of the very first games I really loved and wanted to challenge myself while playing on the harder difficulties and just having fun with the combat. Now, anytime you play something for too long and too much, you don't have that love for it. Of course, God of War will always be one of my favorite games ever made, but I have that itch to find something like that feeling for God of War I had back in 2018. I don't need a game to have insane crazy combat 24/7. For example, The Last of Us experience on Grounded was more a stealthy playthrough and me trying to just work my way through it and get it done rather than trying to make everything look flashy. Now, when it comes to Devil May Cry, it is the complete opposite. It is the definition of an action combat game. And that sounds super thrilling, and that is exactly why I started to play this game. 7 months ago is the first time I ever really got into this game, and I took a long break from it. It was very overwhelming, I did enjoy it, but the amount of muscle memory and learning that goes into this just felt super overwhelming to me. For example, if you were to play games like God of War, Spider-Man, or Ghost of Tsushima, you'll see that the combat isn't super overwhelming. I mean, I guess it depends on where you are as a gamer, but compared to a lot of other games, it has a easier concept to grasp, right? And at the same time, it is crazy rewarding to do those things. So those were the games I preferred for so long and still kind of do. I absolutely love just getting on and not having to sit there and feel like I have to try in order to do something cool. After gaining all that experience from all those different video games and especially challenging myself in those, I wanted to come back to Devil May Cry because this was one of the most challenging games I played. Now, it wasn't challenging in terms that I couldn't beat it. There are difficulty settings, so if you just wanted to experience the game, you could. But this is 1,000% one of those games where the better you are, the more fun you're going to have. And it kind of sucks because for people that like this game and this art style, you're going to have to devote a lot of time in order to be good. You don't have to spend a lot of time in order to do insane combos, but for a lot of people, I feel like that adjustment is going to be huge. I currently now have just under 40 hours at like 38, 39, and I'm sure it's going to go up, so I have a better understanding about the game. Now, that is also combined with the first time that I played the game. It didn't take me long. It's not a super long game. Again, one of those things where you're going to do a lot of repetitive missions. But to me, one of the few games that I actually did not care. I would do the same mission 100 times because the whole purpose is the combat. Yeah, the scenery can be cool, but you're focusing on everything that you're doing and what's in front of you. So as cool as everything is in the background, you're not really paying too much attention to that unless you're not fighting. Technically, if you think about it, this game really isn't hard at all. You're thrown into an area when you start a mission that you have to work your way through, defeating a bunch of different enemies, trying to, build up your style points for an overall score at the end, while also making your way to the final boss. Now, these are things that I actually enjoy because they give you like two perspectives. You're able to fight mobs of enemies and do a lot of cool things with different characters, and then you have a big, cool final boss battle that really tests your skills. Now, the reason I consider this game to be really hard has nothing to do with the difficulty, but the mental state that it puts you in. Like I said, I've played lots of other games. I do enjoy them. I love challenging myself. For example, Sekiro was something that I absolutely loved. Played it on the Charmless run, and it was very fun challenging myself. Now, as challenging as that was, I still think that this game might be a little bit harder, only because of how it makes you feel mentally. After gaining all that experience and putting all the time in those video games, I figured I can come to this one no problem and pick it up and be able to get decent at it. Now, for the most part, yes, you'll see that I am definitely getting better, and that it's only going to happen with time, and especially with, who you are. For example, I wanted to get better at this game. I had the incentive, I liked it. I didn't care how long it took me because I did enjoy the game. But when I first started to play this game, I was just hot trash, just like a lot of people will be. And dude, that is entirely okay, alright? I couldn't grasp the concept of the combos. I just looked at everything like it being too hard, and the more time I put in this game, the more I realized that I was just overthinking everything. Now, when it comes to the combos, it can be super overwhelming, especially if you're new. But to me, what's really overwhelming is the amount of buttons that you have to press and hold. If you guys don't play Claw, you're probably not going to be able to combo as much, so maybe go ahead and get like a SCUF controller with additional buttons. PlayStation has like an attachment you're able to put in your controller to have additional buttons, and that is one of those things that you might need for this game. Now, I never used those. Ever since I was a kid, I've always used base controllers, and still to this day. Which is exactly why I probably will never reach my full potential, but I'm okay with that. I don't play a game to be the best at it. I just play the game because I enjoy it. I mean, this game is the definition of badass. Now, the reason I consider this game being one of the hardest games I ever played isn't, again, because of the difficulty, but the amount of buttons you have to press and hold. Now, I'm not going to sit here and give you a button layout, but each button does something. But please tell me, how in the world are you supposed to press triangle, hold R1, hold circle, hold square, and press X? Now again, this is something that you don't have to do. You're able to customize them however you want. Now, for example, I know I'd play a lot better if I were to switch my square and R2 or my square and L1 for certain characters. But since I've been playing this game, I have already built up some muscle memory, and so I don't want to backtrack. And sometimes you're going to have to backtrack in order to be better, but that's not where I'm at right now. So the thing that makes this game really hard, it's all mechanical and it's all mental. For example, I know that I have the ability to get decently good mechanically, but the only thing that was stopping me was my mental state. Dude, I would tell myself, like, this game's cool, I think it's awesome, but I just suck. I suck. And yeah, I did suck. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't play the game because you're bad. Okay, be bad. You're going to be bad at pretty much any game that you start out with. And you're going to have to go through it. Again, there's going to be that insane person that's just kind of good at everything. But for me, it took a long time and a lot of time playing these video games to really grasp the concept of what I'm doing. Also, you can say what you want about the game. A lot of people will unanimously agree it's super badass with a high skill gap. But man, is it rewarding. Especially when you unlock Vergil and all of a sudden you feel like a demigod. But not only that, you got music like this in the background.
You shall die.
Now, yes, these songs aren't going to be for absolutely everybody, but I feel like this is one of the few games that could rival Doom Eternal's in music in terms of just getting hyped by it. You're listening to it and it makes you want to keep playing the game. That is how I felt while playing this. It also gave me the incentive to want to get better. The higher, skills that you have or the higher rank that you have, the more likely you're able to hear this music, but also that rhythm you're building up while the music is playing. Dude, it is just phenomenal. The main reason I'm making this video and want to talk about this is because I would love for a lot of people to go outside their comfort zone. Play something, try something, whether it's a game you haven't touched in years or your favorite game, and just try the hardest difficulty or challenge yourself, whatever the case may be. Because ever since I at least started to do that, I've elevated and had so much more fun playing these games. One of the greatest things about video games, though, is that you don't have to do any of that. You can just play the game on easy or normal and enjoy it just as much. Anyway, that's going to do it for my video. I really hope that you guys enjoy. I also really hope that you try something new. As always, I love y'all, and I hope you guys enjoy. Peace.